So it's just turned 11, so I shall start our slides for you. So today you are with me. My name's Sarah Hudson, and we are looking at employment law updates for this April. I'll start off by introducing Clover. So you've got some lovely photos here of some members of the team. In terms of Clover HR, we're trusted people advisors, and we're here to help in any way that we can. So between us all, we have over 200 years of experience, and this helps us ensure that you get the best advice. We're able to provide support in a range of areas, and we have different specialisms within the team, so we can usually cover anything that crops up from a HR point of view. If you have any questions, if you can email me, I find that is easier than attempting to kind of check comments as we go through. Do feel free to email anything that you have a query on, and if needed, I can give you a call back and we can have a chat through anything. And if you wouldn't mind just ensuring your microphones are muted, I think possibly that may happen automatically, but I'm not the best computer person, so if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be wonderful. Right, so today we are looking at employment law updates that are coming into effect next month. So we're going to look at the statutory increases that we have due. We're going to look at IR35 and then gender pay gap reporting. So these are the three areas that we're going to focus on today in the webinar. So we have a number of statutory increases. We have the national minimum wage going up, family related pay, statutory sick pay, statutory redundancy calculations, and unfair dismissal compensation. So these are all the areas that are covered in the increases, and I'm going to go through each one in turn just to have a look at the figures and see where we are on those. So the first one, national minimum wage. So in November 2020, the Chancellor announced that the national living wage would increase from £8.72 to £8.91. Now, this is a 2.2% increase, and it takes effect from the 1st of April. The national living wage is the highest band of the national minimum wage. And these can get confusing, but that is the highest level. The others depend on age. So we're going to go through those next. The age threshold for national living wage has been changed. So before 1st of April 2021, this level of minimum wage was only for those aged 25 and over. This changes from the 1st of April to apply to 23 and 24-year-old workers as well. Also, the national minimum wage changes in line with recommendations from the Low Pay Commission. So these changes we're looking at are for workers aged between 21 to 22, their national minimum wage increases from £8.20 up to £8.36, and these are all obviously hourly rates. Workers aged 18 to 20 see their national minimum wage increase from £6.45 an hour to £6.56 an hour. And workers aged 16 to 17 see their national minimum wage increase from £4.55 to £4.62. Apprenticeships, also apprentices who are under 19 or in their first year of apprenticeship, currently receive the minimum rate of £4.15 an hour, and this will be rising to £4.30 again from the 1st of April. So next we come on to family related pay. So from the 4th of April this year, statutory maternity, paternity, adoption, shared parental leave and parental bereavement leave pay will all increase to £151.97 per week. So if we just have a look at these in turn, statutory maternity pay is paid for up to 39 weeks. And what the individual will get is 90% of their average weekly earnings before tax for the first 6 weeks, or the statutory rate, for the first 6 weeks, and then the statutory rate or 90% of their average weekly earnings, whichever is lower, for the next 33 weeks. So this statutory rate will go from £151.20 to the new figure we have there on the screen of £151.97, and that's again 4th of April. So paternity, again, so with paternity you can choose to either take 1 or 2 weeks. This current statutory weekly rate is £151.20, or 90% of your average weekly earnings, whichever of the two is lower, and this again increases to £151.97. Adoption leave and pay. So as with maternity pay, statutory adoption pay is paid for up to 39 weeks. The weekly amount is 90% of your average weekly earnings for the first 6 weeks, and then £151.20 or 90% of your average weekly earnings, whichever is lower, for the next 33 weeks. So this £151.20 rate is what is increasing from the 4th of April to £151.97. So next we have the statutory shared parental leave pay. So if eligible, an employee can end their maternity or adoption leave and pay early, and then take the rest of the 52 weeks of maternity or adoption leave as shared parental leave, and take the rest of the 39 weeks of maternity or adoption pay at the statutory shared parental pay. The pay for the remainder of the remainder 39 weeks is currently £151.20, or 90% of average weekly earnings, whichever is lower. And again, this statutory rate will increase on the 4th of April to £151.97. And then finally, we have parental bereavement leave. So this is if a child were to die before they turned 18, or if an individual has a stillbirth after 24 weeks of pregnancy, they can still take 2 weeks leave from the first day of employment for each child who has died or is stillborn. And again, we're looking at a weekly rate increase from £151.20 to £151.97. So a little bit of repetition there, I apologise for that, but just to make sure that everybody's clear on these different reasons of family-related pay, but that the rates are increasing the same. So now we look at statutory sick pay. So the current rate of statutory sick pay is £95.85 per week. This, from the 6th of April, will be increasing to £96.35 per week. So this payment is payable for up to 28 weeks from the 4th day of absence. Just a note, with the current situation with coronavirus, if somebody is self-isolating, then their statutory sick pay is payable from the 1st day of absence and not the 4th day. The next point we come on to is statutory redundancy calculations. So there's new limits of the redundancy pay which come into force on the 6th of April. So employers who dismiss employees for redundancy must pay those with 2 years service an amount based on the employee's weekly pay, length of service and age. So the calculation is based on the figures of half a week's pay for each full year where the employee was under 22 years old, 1 week's pay for each full year where the employee was 22 or older but under 41, so 22 to 40, and then 1.5 weeks pay for each full year that they were 41 or older. The length of service in that calculation is capped at 20 years, and the weekly pay in that calculation is the average earned per week over the 12 weeks before the day of the notice of redundancy. So it's this weekly amount that we're looking at here, and it's subject to a maximum amount. That's currently £538 per week, and this will go up to £544 per week from the 6th of April this year. Small one here, unfair dismissal compensation. So the current rate is £88,519 in terms of maximum award that can be made for unfair dismissals. This maximum is increasing to £89,493, and that's for dismissals taking place on or after the 6th of April. So we move on now to IR35. So I have only one slide on IR35 because it's a very big subject, and today isn't for going into full details on it. If anybody does want some further detail on this, Clover HR are running a separate webinar specifically on IR35, which might be of interest to you. So feel free, please go on the website and sign up for that. As I say, that will be more detailed than this. This is just a bit of an overview here with the changes from the 6th. So reforms to IR35 rules on off-payroll working in the private sector come into force on the 6th of April this year. And this has been delayed. It was meant to come in force last year, but it's been delayed because of the coronavirus pandemic. So the purpose of IR35 is that it aids the reduction of tax avoidance, essentially, for contractors who are employed via a personal service company. So under the new rules, the organisation engaging with the contractor is responsible for determining their employment status and assessing whether IR35 applies. So if IR35 does apply, the organisation that pays that individual's fees is deemed to be their employer for tax and national insurance purposes. So this is quite a substantial change in the piece of work that does need to be looked at if this does apply to your organisation. Once the organisation's determined an individual's classification, they need to provide a status determination statement to the individual and to the party with which the organisation is contracted. For this statement to be valid, the client must also provide reasons why they've reached that determination. So you have to have thought through this and gone through the process. So in summary from this, for the changes that are coming into force on the 6th of April, employers need to review contracts and put in place any necessary procedures just to ensure that they're complying if this does apply to them. So as I've said, Clover is doing a webinar on this at a later date. We also do have experience of dealing with these processes, and if you've got any concerns about your adherence to the new IR35 rules, because it is complex, we will be able to support you on that. And the final point that we're going to be looking at today is gender pay gap reporting. So this is for employers who have 250 or more employees within the organisation, and they're normally required to publish their gender pay gap report by April. So the deadline for the private sector and voluntary sector employers is normally 4th of April, while for public sector employers it's the 30th of March. However, due to coronavirus, the pandemic, the Equality and Human Rights Commission have stated that enforcement of the duty to report on gender pay gap for the 2020-2021 reporting year will be delayed by 6 months. So it therefore doesn't begin again until the 5th of October 2021. So in practical terms, this means that employers are still required to report on their figures, but they have an extra 6 months to do so before any enforcement action begins. However, it might not be as good as it seems, because although enforcement has been temporarily relaxed, any delays in reporting may still adversely affect the reputation of the business with employees, customers and competitors who might expect to be seeing that information. So in summary, ensure that you've got updated policies and pro formas with all the new statutory. Check your documentation, make sure that there are none of the old amounts in there that people might accidentally be using in these documents. Ensure pay increases for minimum wage increases have been processed through your payroll, whether that's an outsourced payroll or yourselves, that will need to come into effect. Check whether IR35 applies to you and your business, and if so, making sure that you've complied with the requirements of this. And ensure that your business completes the gender reporting by the new deadline if you can't do it for the current or previous deadline. Thank you for attending today. I hope you found that helpful and useful. You'll be able to access this webinar. It'll be on our website if you want to go through and just double check on some of those figures. But thank you. Thank you again for attending. Hopefully you found it useful, and hopefully you'll be able to attend some of our next webinars.